Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Tara Time. Tara Time is a wonderful weekly show where I come and share all things leadership, all things business, and quite often all things Tara. This week I have an incredible guest on as usual, and I'm going to let this woman introduce herself, but she has been a wonderful friend to me for many years now, and we've got some pretty cool stories to share. So welcome, Jenn Harris. Please introduce yourself.
Hello. I'm so pleased to be here, Tara. I've been listening to some of the other episodes, and I feel quite honoured to be joining some of your illustrious guests, and the conversations you've had have been brilliant. I'm Jenn Harris. I work in the construction industry, which is where I met Tara, but I'm much more than that. I am a mother and explorer and adventurer and partner and friend and like most of us. What do you want me to divulge at this point?
Well, I thought a great place for us to start, actually. So the thing that I love about this, I don't know, we're going to call it a show. It's now a podcast as well, actually, though I haven't formally launched it. We're on Spotify now.
It's on Spotify. That's how I listen to you. It's on Spotify.
Yeah,
I feel like this is amazing. I put you on my Spotify list.
So one of my friends said last week, I put you on in my car, and I was like, I know that voice. So I thought, like, the thing I love is the idea is to share a bit. Again, you just nailed something there about being the door is fine about being more than, right? And that's the whole point of this. Is I'm more than a coach as well. I'm more than that. I've got opinions on all sorts of things. I've got wonderful friendships. I've got wonderful networks. I've got wonderful family members who have been on here, and I love that, like sharing that extra bit of personal with people. And so I thought we'd start with how we met, because I felt it was a real wonderful story.
You mean in the pub?
Well, actually, maybe not how
like
we met.
When we first met.
No,
because I was ruminating about this, Tara. No, and actually, I think it's really important because this fits with Tara's brand. When I first met Tara, we were at a leaving drinks for a colleague, someone I had worked with, but Tara didn't really know. And Tara had just joined. Yeah, right.
What about this story?
I know. And Tara just joined this company. And sorry, it's a bit funky in here. Let me turn this on. She had just joined this company, and we were at this leaving drinks, and it was at a big bar. And I hadn't met her because I had been seconded into another organization where I'd worked with this colleague. And at first I thought, wow, this woman she's just, you had such energy and you had such a vibe, and I just loved your kind of no nonsense approach. And then this colleague who was leaving, it was his leaving drinks, hit on Tara. And I was so blown over by the way you kind of shut him down. And you did it with confidence, and you did it in such a manner that it was like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to hang out with you. And it just blew me away. And especially given that, confidence is an area all women, most people, let's be honest, most people struggle with. And I was so blown away with the fact that it was just a no nonsense, like, no, not going to deal with this. And that was my first introduction to Tara. And I just thought, this is a woman after my own heart. She's going places. But I just thought, if I could even have a fraction of that level of confidence at any stage in my life, then I'm going far.
It was my first day, Jen. It was my
first day?
Ever day. I had walked in and I was literally shitting my pants. And for context, and people have heard this before, but I'll say it again. I got the job in the construction industry with zero construction background. The level of imposter syndrome for me was enormous. And I walked in because it was a huge company. For me, I was a tiny graduate at a huge company in London, like a brand new city, brand new job, brand new everything. And I was
good context. It was the middle, this pub in the middle of this, in the city. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people were there.
Yeah. And this guy, he was the epitome. He was the absolute, he was just such a slime. And the way he'd approached me, here was the thing. This is why I'd got all up in his face. He'd approached me he said something gross, like, you know, like, you know, you're gonna want to, you know, you're gonna want to get with me, or it was just like properly what, and I was like, you are delusional, and I absolutely do not. Like, I was like, that might work with other people, but it's not gonna work with me. And he was so pissy with me.
I know, but this, I mean, this is, you know, this going back to this, you know, every time and time again, we kind of go back to, okay, what are the barriers to women in any industry, you know, particularly in a male dominated one where the macho kind of culture does dominate and it's allowed to dominate. And this, you know, that was your first introduction, right? And I did look, you know, and it was that you had a huge amount of people supporting you around you going, this isn't on, which did help.
Yeah.
Right. Because you know, there were some people that were just saying, no, that this isn't on. And it, yeah, so that was my first introduction. And I don't want to dwell because this is about, you know, and it was genuinely, I thought she's solid. I need to know her.
Yeah, I remember, and I completely forgotten that story because that is, you're right, that's the first time we met. But what I thought, when I thought about like, oh my, this light, I've got the light issues now.
Yeah,
all sorts of sunshine shining on me.
Have some sun.
About when, because that's when we met, and like you say, you were seconded out. We didn't have loads and loads of interactions. We went to a few social events together, and would bump into each other. But it's not like we were in like daily friend life or even daily colleague life. Actually,
no.
And then one day we were working in the same office, and we hot seated. So like occasionally you might find yourself sat next to each other, and we were actually sat back to back, I think. And I overheard Jen saying she was moving house. And she was like, oh, I'm moving to Crystal Palace and da, 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 da. And I, at the time, was living in Crystal Palace. And I was like, being nosy, I was like, oh my God, where are you moving? Where are you moving? Like, looked over her shoulder. She's like, oh, I'm just showing you on the maps. And she showed me on the maps, and she was moving into the house opposite my house in all of London, in the whole of London.
8 million people, 8 million people, right? And it was just, it was, and Tara, it was after my sabbatical. I had been away for a year, and I was, you know, on the top of the world. I was feeling great. I was tan. I had just been traveling. I'd just been doing what lights me up for a year. And I had come back, and it was back to the work, back to the drudge of it. And I hadn't quite landed into the day in, day out, turn and churn. And, you know, it was such a, I felt like, you know, things like that happen, right? You meet people when you're in that kind of space and you're open to it. And I know you've talked about this before, when you're kind of open to what the universe has for you, when you find people in that space and you connect to them, that there's really something there. And so it was amazing to have somebody who I knew, and I knew you were amazing, and I knew you were a solid person, and we had already partied together in New Cross at the venue. So we had those memories already.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, it was one of those things. And that's where I think I wrote in the description of this, if anything should have needed to convince me about the woo-woo alignment, which I openly and honestly say was never something that was in my world until relatively recently. Mm-hmm. That should have been it. And like I say, you know, just right people, right time. And we had so much fun. And it was only for a relatively short period of time before we moved to Dubai. And that, again, it was ridiculously aligned.
It was one weekend. It was 1 week. You tell, yeah.
We moved to Dubai, and you moved out to.
We moved to Hertfordshire. So the week, it was like a week in October, and you and Tom had won the competition, the grad of the year competition, and you had a free trip to Dubai, and you went out to Dubai for the week, and Paul and I decided to look for a house in that week. We made an offer on a house. You came back, and we sat you down, and you sat us down, and you said, we're moving. We're moving. What? We're moving to Dubai. We're moving to Hertfordshire. Slightly different. Yeah. But it was almost like we had planned, you know, we knew that it was like the short amount of intense time together.
Oh my God. It was so good. We had such a good time. And
it was beautiful. I think it was amazing.
Yeah, you're right. Like, those things happen for a reason. All, you know, the people that you come across in your life, listen to those universal nudges.
Yes.
Make those friendships presented to you, for sure. Because, I mean, how many years ago was that? how many years ago was that? 2015, 2014,
2015. Yeah, 2015. So
Yeah.
I mean, this summer was when we moved, August 2015, a long time ago. And to think that actually, I was reflecting on this, that we knew each other intensely for 6 months, right? We knew of each other. We had hung out, we had partied, we had played softball together, or rounders, I suppose it was.
Yeah.
And obviously I'd met Tom and you'd met Paul, but it was 6 months.
Yeah.
But that time together and being, and I think because we've always, just seen eye to eye, and we had such a great connection.
Yeah.
Lifelong bond, even though we don't see each other, similar to what you were saying with Hannah, your best mate. It was, it's just having that bond.
It's one of those that you find, and like you say, then the major events that have happened, like you've been a part of the major events that have happened in life, wedding, you came out and visited us in Dubai, and it was amazing, and like all of those things are just really important. And yes, I'm very, very grateful for you being in my life. You inspire me in all sorts of ways, and we see eye to eye, I think, because we have many of the same values, many of the same loves in life, one of which is travel for sure. And so let's talk about you being the sabbatical queen, because actually I knew nothing about, I don't think I knew what a sabbatical was until you took one. So
I will tell you the story about this as well, because I think this is really important, and particularly for people that may be listening that don't know if it's a possibility. So when I joined this company that we both worked at, I was aware, because it was very small when I joined. It was much smaller. I shouldn't say very small. It was much smaller. And there had been a career break sabbatical policy online. And it was on their little internal site. And I knew somebody in HR as well. And we, it was something I had my eye on from the moment I joined. You had to work for them for 3 years to apply for one. And I knew that. I had set my calendar almost, I joined it, I joined in 2008, and I was going to do a sabbatical in 2011. But I ended up doing a master's course, and so things got delayed a little bit, but it was still something that I was, hell bent on doing. And, when things look like they're not going to happen, and it was during, we had the financial crash and all these things happened. Finances are such a big part of, you need a bit of money to travel. And I thought, you know what? No, we're making this happen. We're doing this. And I looked back on the intranet site, and there was no policy. And I thought, this is really strange. They decided one day to remove the policy, and I thought, no, I'm not doing this. No, it's there. It's got to be there. So I contacted this person I knew in HR. Sure enough, it still existed. So I had him dust it off and send it to me. And I thought, well, you don't ask, you don't get. And I put together a business case, and I said why it would be useful. And I ended up applying for a 1 year sabbatical, and I got it. But I was a real outlier. I mean, I kind of like was the person that took a sabbatical. Like, oh my God, I can't believe she's taking a sabbatical. And it was a little bit frowned upon. Like, don't go take a sabbatical, and then don't go and get pregnant. I did that afterwards. Big no. But afterwards, I think it became like it became a real popular thing, and people were taking sabbaticals after that, and it was fantastic.
Trailblazer.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't something I think the older I get, the more I'm setting out to do things to help other people. I'm more mindful of that. But at the time, it was just, it was about me, and it was about me taking my sabbatical. But now I'm so pleased that happened, because other people have been able to follow suit. And
this happens all of the time. And I am regularly pulling my clients up and reminding them of this. Everything we do impacts other people. So when, you're usually having an impact that you don't even know about. So actually being mindful of it is great, but usually we're doing it anyway, and we can do with giving ourselves a pat on the back for that impact and that influence that we're having on other people, even when we're not sure about it, or even if we think we're doing it for us, the impact usually spreads.
I'm going to put that in my jar, Tara.
Yes.
I'm going to put that in my jar. I used my jar the other day. Tara said to me to write down my successes, and then when you're having a moody day and you're having a really bad day, a rainy day, you can dig them out and remember, actually, okay, I did something that was, I'm going to put that in my jar. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. We have such an impact on other people that we don't. And if we even just took a second to think about all of the things we've done, and how, like, what influence and impact that has had on other people, whether we thought about it at the time or not. I bet you find things that you can be like, fuck yeah, I did that. But like I say, I didn't even know, and I didn't even know about that option. And actually, there could be people watching here who have no clue what a sabbatical is. So you actually go and explain to people what a sabbatical even is, because there could be people who don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, sabbatical, career break, it's about taking time off for you, and it could be anywhere from 6 weeks to a year to 2 years to whatever it is, but it's about working on something, traveling. There have been people who have taken time off to go volunteer. It's about, just not slaving the 9 to 5, 24, all year long, and taking just 2 weeks off for yourself. And I think for me, I'm already targeting my next career break, and I'm really very fortunate to work in the UK civil service, and career breaks are very common. So lots of people I speak to on a daily basis, we're talking about career breaks now. But that is I'm a very fortunate position I'm in at the moment. But I think ultimately we work until we're in our 60s. Why not take time off? But this goes back a little bit.
And the rest for some people now, right? And the rest,
rest, recharge, and also reset and find out about you. So you talked about this in your last podcast, your last chat, about that, what travel does. And if anyone's thinking, oh, I think a sabbatical, just do it. Go. You don't need to work abroad. It doesn't need to be the whole, because it is a challenge to move yourself and your family or whatever it is abroad and take a job abroad. Just take a sabbatical, take a short break, get out there, volunteer, learn a different language, do whatever it is, or do nothing. Take a sabbatical
just and sit at home. Yeah.
Because nothing is something, right? At the end of the day, we're human beings, not human doings.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. I've never heard that. Tom is in the background here, and he just literally his ears freaked up when he heard that. I love that.
Well, it is. It's just like, this whole idea of mindful, we're not this, we're in this capitalist mindset of do, produce. Like, being is not amazing enough. Like, isn't that amazing to just be?
Yeah. And the thing with this, just go back to the sabbatical thing. The thing with sabbatical is, the policy that if your company has a sabbatical policy. And I think if you're in the UK, actually, there's some legislation around. I might be wrong there, but I think there's some legislation around, isn't there?
There is around, but I think it's particular. Well, I'm not sure about universal, but I know particularly if you are a parent and if you have a child under the age of 18, you are legally entitled to take time off, unpaid. And my sabbatical was unpaid. And if you get a paid one, there are some companies that do offer paid ones, which is pretty amazing, like John Lewis. Props to John Lewis. But you are entitled to take, and I can't remember the exact time, but you are entitled under law to ask to take time off if you have children under the age of 18. And I think you can take something like, I want to say it's throughout the whole, because it's the whole span of their life till they're 18, really. You can take, I think, 18 months or something like that. So you could decide to take it in chunks, or a month, a year, or whatever it may be. So if you are a parent, look into it. But otherwise, still ask your employer. I mean, I ended up coming back feeling super recharged, super refreshed. Like I said, I was happy, and I was ready to kind of take on the world.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. Your role is secured. If your company has a policy, the policy is you can take this break and you come back and your role is going to be there for you. Like, you don't have to apply again. You don't have to do any of these things. Your role is kept for you, essentially. And that's
so there is a little bit of, you have to read the policy, read the fine print. But the policy I took was, if there's a role for you, you can come back. If there's not, you won't. So I did take that risk when I left. But if you work in a male-dominated industry, if you work in an industry like construction, if you work in project management, especially for the people that are in the UK right now, there is a huge skills gap, skills shortage. People are walking into companies. We need your skills. So, yes, you are taking a risk, but I mean, is it really a risk of you living your best life, living that dream and pursuing something you love? You've got to weigh it up at the time. There's a question here about if your partner is pregnant, does that count? I'm not entirely sure. And I definitely think it's something worth looking into.
Yeah, great question. Catherine's just written, one of my colleagues' partners has pregnancy-related health issues and needs constant support. He's getting into shit for taking time off to look after her. Well, maybe he wants to look at the organisation he's working in. And it's crappy, isn't it? Like, and here's the thing, we're here, we have these conversations all of the time, and we're going to get into that in a minute about supporting women in male-dominated industries. But we have this until we have, the level of support that men need as well.
Yeah, and it is. So if they are, and you'll have to check on the kind of, and I don't think it's if they're married. I think if he is the father, then I think I'm pretty sure both parents, or if you're adopted parents, if the person adopts the child, then I think they are entitled. So definitely look into it. I don't remember what it's called, but it probably like parental leave, special and unpaid parental leave or something like that.
Yeah. And again, it's a thing that people just don't even, it's like
you're not aware of, right? Yeah.
You have to dig for them to find out, or you have to come and watch something like this to go, oh my God, what? This is why we do this.
It's not advertised, right? And I think you're right about the kind of parental leave for the paternal leave. I mean, what's a week paid with 1 week unpaid? I mean, that is completely bonkers. I was bawling tears when my partner left me and Byron, my first child. He took 3 weeks off because he was working in the he's a paramedic at the time, so he was able to kind of, thankfully, to do some of his shift work around it. And I cried that whole day. So it's important. I know Lloyd's of London, they have just implemented I want to say 15 or 17 week paid parental leave for fathers now. So companies, it's investing in your employees.
Yeah, I'm just I've just seen here Andrew's shared a link. Look at this. This is why we do this. Freaking love it. Sharing useful information. That people can
I know, useful information. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So back to the sabbatical. So you took the sabbatical, and we spoke for love of travel. Tell us about your sabbatical itself and what you experienced and where you went.
I mean, where do I start? Where do I start? So I originally, my partner and I, we met traveling. We met in New Zealand. We were both, I never had a passport. I'm American. And, it's just lots of Americans don't have passports. Why would you leave America? Best country in the world. That was the rhetoric that, me and lots of other Americans were kind of told throughout, which is very opposite here in the UK, because you're kind of told, leave the country where, you got to go travel. I'm being facetious, but I got a passport when I was 21, 22, went traveling, met my partner in New Zealand. We lived in Australia for a bit. We traveled in Southeast Asia. But when we came back, we decided to settle in the UK, London specifically. And it was always still my goal. I thought we particularly, and him as well, but I was really the driving force. I said, we have to go back. We talked about traveling South America. We had been talking about it since we met. We came to London, and then all this stuff happened. Life happened. We got jobs. We were in decent enough jobs. We were building that security blanket. And one day, I had a really bad weekend, and I ended up I got really drunk, and I said to him, "We're doing it." I said, "We're doing it. We're setting the deadline." I said, I handed my dissertation next May, and we're gonna plan it, because I wanted to go out and work. My brother, he's an artist, and he builds big art installations, and he was planning a big art installation for the Burning Man Festival in the Nevada desert. And I said, I will not miss being a part of his crew and physically going out and constructing this project with him. I just won't. So let that be the beginning of our sabbatical. And sure enough, it was just over, a year from that point. And we saved, we had a budget, and we were talking about this the other day. We had a budget of £100 between the two of us for a week, for all the food, all the, drinks, going to cafes, whatever it may be. And that was, in London. So £50, that was it. But you could get by. Cost of living now, it's a lot bit harder. Not a little bit harder, it's a lot bit harder. But we saved our money, and we decided, we're going to go for a year to the day. Booked around the world tickets. So we went to the US. We started in California, San Francisco, and we stayed in the US for about 7 weeks. I went and visited family in Oregon, and then we flew down to Colombia, and we traveled all down through the Andes, primarily into Chile, Argentina, and then up to Rio for Carnival in February, Carnival, then flew back to Colombia, and then did the north. So through into Panama, all of Central America, Mexico, and Cuba, ended in Cuba.
And was it just the time of your life, or what? Tell me.
I mean, it did, ups and downs. It's I think, I mean, travel is the best education one can get, hands down. You learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about what you love, what you don't love. I think volunteering was important as well, because Paul and I had traveled before in Southeast Asia for extended periods, but we hadn't done any volunteering. For me, that was a really big part of this. And I realized I don't want to work with animals. I don't want to work with children. Working with animals is hard.
I only want animals. Actually, you're right. I don't want to work with animals. All I want to do is stroke dogs. You're right. I don't want to clean up shit either.
I cleaned up shit. Yeah, I cleaned up shit in a animal reserve in Ecuador, and it was an amazing experience. I mean, we were going to be there a month. That's what we. No, I can't remember. Was it 2 weeks or 4 weeks? I can't remember what we said we were going to do. We stayed a week. It was hard work. It was really challenging. We stayed a week, but they did work us to death. It was kind of, we called it, what do we call it? Monkey slave camp or something. It was tough. It was tough, but it was really interesting. But one of the best things I did was learning another language, so learning Spanish and taking intense Spanish classes. And we stayed in a Spanish school in Nicaragua and volunteered. And I did volunteer with children at a kind of a special education facility that they had started. And it was living with the locals, living with the local family. And that changed me to the core. I knew, I'd always been somebody for social value, and it really opened my eyes to the world around, to the differences, the vast differences. But that really changed me to the core, and I'm desperate to bring my kids there so they can see and they can appreciate how life is very different for children in other countries.
Top secret news is we are eyeballing Nicaragua right now for potential future endeavors. So we're going to, we're going to align. Whatever happens, we're going to.
I genuinely think when we saw you last year, we talked about going there and meeting there, because I want to take them back to this school, particularly because of because of the bond of the connection. But it's a genuinely amazing country for people that it's so South America, Central America. It was amazing. And, we were out of our comfort zone, of course, like the language skills, but you communicate differently. You learn about yourself, about not being I'm like you, Tara. I used to be very impatient and but you sometimes
you just think, what is that gains me nothing. What patience gains you, what tolerance gains you is so
I think about
different.
the times I would freak out about such little things. Going, what did that gain me? Nothing. I just got over anxious over nothing. So, but yeah, the Sabbatical. Another thing that I loved and that we did was we wrote a blog, and it was fantastic. It was, I think people read it. It looked like people might have read it, but it was really about us capturing our memories, and it was something to do as well, because when you're out and you're traveling around, it can be it depends on how you spend your time, but it gave me something to focus on and a project, and I liked having that as a project, and that was really great. But another thing I have to note is we did everything really on the cheap. So project manager, I had my spreadsheets, and I loved it. And I've passed those on to people, and I've said, here you go, this is what I've used, plan away. I found they've been brilliant. I was able to plan, I planned expense, it projected. Oh, it was great. I project managed it. But for me, I really enjoyed doing that. And it was a real project because we had a very fixed budget. I didn't want to come back in the year. We brought our tent, we camped, we hiked, we ate street food. We did it to such a point that the dry chicken and rice in Ecuador, I couldn't eat. I mean, it was so. I really needed some flavor. That's why when I came back, I was like, I need strong cheese. I started eating blue cheese. I never ate blue cheese before. Drink a lot of red wine.
Yeah,
You're in a good place.
I am in a great part.
Stronger
Cheddar
flavors.
cheese, like me and Tom talk about cheddar cheese at least once a day. Like, oh my god, what a good slice of.
I know the cheese is so mild, right? I think this is it. I can't eat mild cheese anymore.
Yeah, there is a lot of mild. Actually, the cheese in Argentina is pretty good. They've got quite a good selection of cheese. Actually, you're right. I'm in a good place right now.
You are. You are. Thinking back, we had some really nice charcuterie in Argentina, but the cost, because we were traveling in through the Andes, which was a lot of places are a lot cheaper. So but it's amazing. South and Central America are, desperate to go back.
Stolen my heart for sure. Like this is part of the world that has absolutely stolen my heart, and I just love living here so much. So Tom and I made a decision that because we're coming back to the UK and Europe for 6 months in May. It's the first time we've been back for longer than two or 3 weeks in the UK in 8 years. So it's kind of scary for us. And it's a whole travel thing in itself. But we were planning to go to Colombia after here. But we have unfinished travel business here. We may have underestimated the level of effort going into a startup at the beginning and thought we could travel more. And I'm a slow mad. I am and especially when I'm running this business as well, it's like this. Essentially, I'm just running a business and living in a different place. Travel hasn't necessarily been the forefront. So, and we have to, it's funny because I just spent 5 days road tripping across northern Argentina, and it's been incredible.
But then you came back to do this. I was thinking, I'm sure you're not. Where you're? Good thing you've got some good Wi-Fi. Where are you, by the way?
We're in Salta at the minute. So
okay. So you've gone back to Salta. Okay.
Yeah. We're in the city now. So, and again, we're going road tripping again on Saturday.
Are you going to Salar de Uyuni? Have you made it up there yet? To the Bolivian border, Atacama Desert.
We're going up there. That next weekend, I think we're going. Tom's done the travel planning, so I just show up and hope for the best.
Tom,
I do this.
Salar
he does
the
travel planning.
Yeah,
he's nodding behind me in the back. Yeah. That's where we're going. We're going to Salt Flats.
Best place.
Yeah, and so to Tilcara and the Salt Flats and the Rainbow Mountains. Well, that's where we're going this weekend. And our friend Emily, Emily is coming out to join us. So she's going to come. She's coming to Salta with us for 5 days while we go road tripping. She's then going on her own tour, and then we're meeting up and going to Iguazu Falls at the end. So I say I've not been traveling much. I travel. I live a lot. Like this weekend, I'd lived like a lifetime in a day. Like that's how it feels.
But but that is travel. That's it. I think if you do it for a long period of time, not every day is a bag. Is full of fun.
Yeah.
A lot. That was another thing. It's just uncomfortable. I remember being uncomfortable for a year. Like I wanted a sofa that was clean that I could lay down on.
That is one thing. Like I am loving the way. I'm loving the way that we're doing this because it works for us. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't deal with
you like comfort. Yeah.
I'm a baby. I love comfort. And it's like, okay, we'll do it slowly. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, we're in a business startup phase. We've invested so much money. So the apartments that we're living in aren't the top spec apartments that I would love to be living in, but they do have a comfy sofa and a clean sofa.
Yeah. Comfy, clean sofas.
But we've unfinished travel business. We haven't done Patagonia yet. We haven't done a few places in Argentina that we want to go to. So we're coming back. We're going to come back at the end of October. We're going to spend another 6 months here. Finishing
great time to do it. Yeah. Right. When their summer's starting.
Yeah. And that's the time frame that we came last time. And it was just perfect. So we're going to do another 6 months here. This country's so huge. There's so much to see and the people are amazing and we love it. So
don't forget Chile. Don't forget. Chile.
That's so we can do the next thing, wherever we go next and next and next. But we're going to finish Argentina, and then we'll stay in South America, whether we go or Central America, whether we go Nicaragua, or whether we go Colombia, whether we go Chile, whether we go who knows.
Yeah. All of it, all of the above, all of the above, isn't it? Yeah, and the nice thing about traveling in South and Central America is they speak a common language.
Yeah,
some people speak it faster. Brazil, obviously, you need to learn a bit of Portuguese, but and don't try and speak Spanish and make it sound like Portuguese because it's a completely different language. completely and they don't like it.
Yeah, the language thing isn't. However, it's frustrating because it's ever so slightly different. So obviously we learned our first lot of Spanish in Peru, which is the easiest place to learn it. It's
It's very
cleanest,
slow.
the slowest,
Yeah.
the least
Easy to
accent.
understand. Yeah.
But not
You're
only
in a hard
that, so
place.
yeah. Now it's hard, but also loads of the
slang.
different too. Like
so much
Tom
slang.
came back. Yeah, but Tom came back from the grocery store the other day, and he was like absolutely fuming. I was like, "What's happened?" He was like, "I was just trying to get some ginger, and they have a different word for ginger here, and I didn't have any internet, so I'm just shouting the only word for ginger I know, and they're looking at me like I'm an idiot."
I mean, that just shows what an area you're in that you're looking for ginger, because I'm not sure you could get ginger in a lot of other places in the Andes. I mean, I don't know. Can you? Is that a common ingredient?
Yeah, absolutely. Here it is, definitely.
Okay.
But yeah. Well, we were in BA then. I don't know if it's so common here, but yeah, we were in BA then, so it was easier. Okay, so one tip, if you were going to give a tip to anybody about taking a sabbatical, what would it be?
Plan, and plan again. It is a big undertaking, not just the getting over asking your employer and finding a way forward, but plan out your business case, write a business case, write it down. Tell them what it means to them and why they benefit. I mean, as a woman, we have to do that anyway when we talk about things. It's always putting the team first, but companies want to know what's the benefit to them. So plan, and also plan your money as well. Plan around your savings and where you want to go. But that's just, I guess I'm just a planner. I mean, some people might be a bit more fly by the seat of your pants, but yeah, I don't know.
I think that tip there about asking in a way
appropriately, in a way
that motivates them. That is 101 influence, right? This works. Whatever you are trying to influence in your life, this is the tip that I give to people. And when I say, how can I influence? How can I get what I want? Ask the question or frame the thing in the way that motivates the other person. So spend some time thinking, what is in it for them? This is not getting whatever you want is no longer about you. It's about them. It's about what they want. And for me, that is the most powerful way to influence anything. Whether you want to influence the outcome of a meeting, whether you want to influence a decision that is being made, that is it.
Yep.
What motivates
think about your audience. Think about your audience. Yeah. What is it that they want? And find a way to put that in. I mean, I can't remember exactly what I put in my business case, but it was about, exploring, because, at the time I was thinking I wanted to move internationally. I wanted to work in the international sector. And that was what my emphasis was because they didn't have a presence in South America, and they do now, as you know, Tara, but at the time that was something that I wanted to kind of do. So I definitely put that in my, that was part of it, was to explore these areas and explore what opportunities were around, which, thankfully they have moved out into those areas. So it's not because of me by any stretch of the imagination, but it was, it definitely spend some time thinking about how it applies to them.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip. And Andrew Barrett in the comments is saying, I'm just doing a shameless plug for a good employer. We give our staff paid sabbatical every 5 years, and he's put the links in there. Absolutely banging. Awesome. Have a look in there. Fantastic.
I mean, that is what motivates people. And business is about people now. We are moving into a, phase where AI technology things are changing, and we're living in a world that's changing, and people need to be, people and adaptability, and it's important. It's really important if you want to keep your staff.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other things I wanted to touch on, and that we absolutely must and should, because it is literally an area of expertise and you are being recognized all over the place for your work in this, is, being a woman working in a male-dominated industry, specifically construction. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the research that you've done and what you found and how you're sharing that.
Thank you. I think I was reflecting on this. I knew this question was coming. I thought, how am I gonna answer this, because it's such a mixed bag and it evolves all the time. And what I want to talk about, what I want to focus on next, keeps evolving too. Because I'm not, this conversation, it's something that lights me up when I talk about, as you know, Tara. I did my dissertation. It was a construction project management dissertation, but I course, sorry. And I knew I wanted to do my dissertation on something more touchy-feely, if you will. I didn't want to do it on anything particularly technical. And because, project managers were people, we influence change, we influence people, stakeholder management, that side of thing. So that's what I wanted to do on, but I particularly wanted to look at masculinities in construction. So construction is the second most male dominated industry after mining. And I know you've had a mining professional.
Yes.
And I wanted to look at the role that masculinities and this kind of this idea, the socially constructed idea of what a man is, because they have male parts, has to do, and how that affects the industry and how the men working in it, given there are so many men. But I couldn't do my dissertation on that. I mean, I suppose I could, but I couldn't find any research. I couldn't find any previous, not any, that I couldn't find enough previous research that I could base a topic off of, that I could come up with a legitimate literature review. So I wanted to tweak it a little bit, and I thought, okay, let's compare. Let's do a comparison, because ultimately women in construction, I wanted to look at it from a male perspective as well as women. So I decided to run a self-perception survey. It had already been written. I was really just using a format, and I wanted to look at the self-perception of men and women through their careers at different ages and different levels. And I wanted to see if men and women thought differently about themselves. And there was a number of domains that this test looked at. And so I wanted to see, and ultimately where I was coming from is I was working in a company that had, and a lot of people around me, very young, aspirational, women that came in and they were just going to conquer the world. Taras, right? Tara times, all those type of personalities. And I think as a woman, whether you recognize it or not, when you go into a male-dominated industry and environment, there's something about that, about making that decision to kind of tackle that. And a lot of people like that barrier, and they thrive off of it. And I saw that around me, and me too, to some extent. I never set out to work in construction, but it never put me off in that way. I actually quite liked it. I quite identified with, being the woman in this group. And I always, had a lot of male friends, etc. So I saw this around me, and I saw these personalities. But then when the older you got, and the more senior, they just weren't there anymore. And I wanted to see, like, is this something about self? Is it about how we perceive ourselves? Is this can we link this to the barriers to progression? And there's this concept called the leaky pipeline, which is effectively we're pumping in lots of young, wonderful graduates. Women and girls are studying engineering and STEM subjects at a record rate. They are entering the industry so quickly, but the evidence and the data says, if they don't leave within the first 5 years, they leave by the time they're 40. They leave in their 40s. And yes, there are outliers everywhere, but the data specifically says this is happening, and it hasn't changed. And that's another point I want to get across, is that there have been initiatives up the wazoo from government, companies, industry. The percentage of women working in construction has remained between 9 and 13% for the past 3+ decades. It hasn't changed. And I have hope that it will, because I think that there is a huge amount of push, and I speak to people a lot in government, in professional bodies. I've got my fingers in lots of pies at the moment, and there's some real like-minded people that are looking to really drive this forward. Anyway, detract from my research, self-perception. One of the stark things I noticed was that, and this was kind of one of the main things, that the statistically significant piece was that this idea of self-worth, so it's how you view yourself compared to others, for women, for men, I should say, remained about the same. It dipped a little bit, 18 to 24, and then the next age, 25 to 34, dipped slightly, but then it did go up. And the highest mean score was ages 55 to 65 plus. So the older the men got, basically, the better they thought about themselves compared to others. They had a higher global self-worth. For women, it went the exact opposite, and it was such a steep, it was statistically significant decline. And I didn't have any women in the older age range undertake the survey. So that was a real stark kind of realization, looking at this figure to think, actually, we are this, is industry, is it society? I mean, it's multifaceted, isn't it? But there's something there about this way we feel about ourselves in this kind of unrelenting environment at times. And we've alluded to it in our first discussion about what happens, when you on your first day in a new job and you get, picked up on it.
Yeah. What I found so interesting about that, and I must say this once a week now, but it is just something that is becoming apparent and something that I need to talk about, is the work that I do. I predominantly work with, I don't solely work with women. I do have male coaching clients as well, but I predominantly work with women. And that makes people think that the work I do is gender equality work from a systematic perspective. But it's actually not. It's from a personal perspective. So I work on an individual level. That's where my expertise lie. That's where I was so interested about this research, because it ties in so much to what I do now as a job, is because there is systematic issues that need to be resolved, and there are people doing things about that. I would say cleverer and bigger people than me who are working on things like that. But there's also the individual thing, and both of those things have to happen together. One or the other is not enough. So we can look and we can identify, and we can moan about and complain about and do all of the things, unless we're creating change either or both on the systematic scale, on the individual scale, or on both. Nothing's going to change, and we've got to do that.
Absolutely, it can't.
Our self-confidence.
It can't just be it can't just be the policy. And you're right, Tara. And this is so I've been presenting my research the past year. I put it together as a slide deck for International Women's Day and Women's History Month last March, and finally got the research out. I co-authored with my dissertation advisor, and it was published back in 2019. But I did that meek, like, I don't want to talk about it for so long, and I didn't want to talk. And then COVID and kids and all that stuff. But I was thankfully, I had a director that said to me, yes, please, just do it. Just put it out there. And my line manager was super enthusiastic, says, put it out there. And I put it out there. And since I've presented to a number of different government departments and teams, I've been to conferences and panels, discussions. But the point I'm trying, the point I like to get across is that, ultimately it's about that everybody finding their piece. Cultural change is individual action on a mass scale, and you have to be part of the solution. Whatever your piece is, Tara, if it's coaching, helping other people, helping somebody up the ladder behind you, mentoring, just being present, and that goes for men and women, because non-binary, embracing the people around you, because inclusion is not just the right thing to do. It's actually benefits everybody.
Yeah.
It being in that inclusive space. So you were talking about the kind of macro and micro level, and I'm actually talking to a lot of people on the kind of the macro level, and it's really great because there's so many different strategies going around to the point that it's a little daunting, because there's so much talk. But I actually feel that just got to keep going, right? You just got to keep swimming. And there's a lot of men engaging in the conversation as well, and that's where I'm really keen to see it being. They're the power holders. People don't want to get rid of their power, but
what's next? So you just mentioned something really interesting, right? When you first started doing the research and presenting things, and you were kind of hiding it away a little bit, but now it is out there in the limelight and you are sharing it. And what's next? Like, where you said earlier as well, I'm thinking about what's coming up next, and I don't know where it's going. What's next?
I genuinely don't know. I think because it's not my personality. I like to know people. I like connections. I seek connections with like-minded people. And actually, I'm seeking connections with not like-minded people. That's my goal this year, is apart from practice letting go, which is about, helping to not control things. But my goal this year is to seek out connections with people that don't see eye to eye with, because I need to learn from these people. I need to learn from somebody who has put up a barrier as to, why they don't want to engage with the topic of equality or diversity, because they think it's just a women's issue. And that's what I'm really focused on this year. So that for me, that's what's next, is kind of figuring out how to engage. There's two ends of the spectrum. You've got, preaching to the choir, the people that are, preaching to the converted, they're on board, they're really into, yes, we might split hairs about the best way to move equality, diversity, equity, diversity, inclusion forward, but they're on that side. There are people that it probably won't ever come around. But then there's a huge amount of people in that middle, and that's what I'm focusing on, is learning from them and seeing who I could influence.
That is an incredible way to look at it, and an extremely non-judgmental way to look at it, which I love. It's not, like you said, you want to influence people, but your primary thing is, what can I learn from somebody who doesn't think the way that I think? And I talk about judgment a lot, and just letting go of judgment, because it doesn't really serve any of us. And somebody once said, well, does that mean that I just don't have an opinion about anything? Because it's like, no, you just have your opinion, and you allow other people to have theirs, and you get interested about that, rather than, assuming that your opinion is immediately right. You're not going to learn anything that way. Even if it is something that you think is glaringly obvious and staring you in the face, there is something to be learned from somebody else's opinion.
Absolutely. And you said that last week as well. And there's no shame in saying, I thought this last week and now I think differently. And I even put it on my screen. Listen as a reminder. When I'm in meetings with people and all they're doing is talking, sometimes all you can do is listen. But it's also about finding, what motivates people, and that's leadership anyway. You want to get the best out of people, and what makes them tick and what motivates them. But at the moment, I'm really involved. I went to Women of the World Festival in London a couple of weeks ago, and there were some amazing sessions that blew my mind, and I ended up talking with some phenomenal people that are doing amazing work. But the ones that I really am keen to follow their work and link, I don't know. Link in with, I'm not sure, are the ones that are dealing with the boyhood initiatives, that they basically getting men involved in the conversation. There was I think it's called Equity. I can't remember the name of the company, Equity Now or something like that. But basically, this idea that, and I keep saying this, that it's two sides of the coin. You've got the way society as a whole treats men, and the expectations it puts on men to be breadwinners, to not cry, to be a certain way, to be strong, and the way it treats women, to be meek, to be quiet, to sit down and shut up. And it's two sides of the same coin. And we are all part of a society that has let this happen, and we all have the power to change it and to challenge it and to say, well, why is this? It's not written in stone that men have to be this way, women have to be this way, non-binary have to be this way. So I'm constantly, thinking about, okay, how can I challenge that as a mom of boys? Mm-hmm. And it frightens me. It really scares me. But also, how can I influence? How? And maybe I'm not the right person to influence, but being just open to it and finding out what people are doing in the spaces. That's my next kind of goal, is to get into that masculinity space.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Do you think that will be research, or do you think it will be more practical things, or networking?
I don't know. I constantly write down. I've got my notebook, my development notebook, which I constantly write down people that inspire me, things that, I've got. I was looking at this the other day. I've got a web. Maybe it's not now. I don't even know where it is, but I wrote down a web of all the things that interest, all these concepts and how they all link together, and possibly research, possibly. I mean, I think that's
so exciting.
It is.
It's great. You're like me. You're a lifelong learner as well. Yeah. You never stop learning. You've got to be learning, whether it's from people, whether it's formal learning, whether it's just learning from other people. Mentoring, I know you've been on a really cool program recently that you enjoyed as well, and
loved it.
Maybe just before we finish, maybe let's talk about that, because obviously that is I am here shouting about it all of the time, about investing time in yourself, investing money in yourself, investing in your own development, and how fucking important it is. And it's really easy for me to say that. And of course you're going to say that. That's what you do for a profession. But I've been doing that my entire career. I've been investing time and money in myself from the beginning. And that is what has created change. What would you say to people about that as well?
100%. I think there was this, this idea that you should spend 10% of your time, 20% of your time on yourself and your development. And, it absolutely, you should have time where you're looking out the window. And if you don't have time where you're looking out the window, then you're not planning your day right. You should have time for yourself, that you have your notebook, that you look around, and I'm saying you should, you could do whatever you want, but focusing on your personal development is it's core. It's really core. I mean, it's core to expanding yourself, expanding your mind, learning more. And there's so many different ways to do it. It doesn't need to be a course. It doesn't need to be something formal. Grab a notebook, grab a pen, write down things that excite you, that you want, something that you want to pursue. And it doesn't need to be that that's going to be your next complete step in your career. It's about finding those mini steps. And you may realize you don't want to do that after you go down a couple mini steps, but talking to people, opening up your connections, networking. You have a network regardless of where you start, regardless of where you're, what level you are in whatever organization, you will have a network. And putting yourself out there, or if you can't do it, finding somebody else to help you do it. That's the important thing. I think it's not scrolling, we all are guilty of, scrolling through our phone. That's not really going to get us where we need to be, is it? So I think living your best life. I mean, Tara, you've shown. I've
just seen this comment come up here. So it's from Sam, who is a journal. She's a journaling expert. She calls herself the Empress of journaling, and that is exactly what she is.
I mean, I've got so many. Yeah, look, my journal is open as we speak. I do, and that helped a lot with, I know your guest last week talked about depression, postnatal depression, all those things, but journaling, it's been huge. But yes, yeah, writing it down and put it up on the wall. I've got all these blank walls which we've freshly painted, and can't wait to put my artwork up and my vision board, and it.
All right, what's on the vision board? I want to know what's on the vision board.
I don't have it up yet. But it will be pictures of places to travel. I mean, I think that's my next challenge is I've got young kids, and we've talked about this, Tara. You're like, yeah, but kids can travel, and I'm like, okay, yeah. I just need to. I'm putting my mental plan in place of how we're going to make that happen. So.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a super interesting conversation for us in the future. There's going to be another one of these of when you've made those plans and it's like, okay, this is how you do it. You can do it, and this is how you do it. And this is why I think
it's easier, and it's easier to kind of plan when it's just you or just you and a partner. That's what I keep asking myself is, okay, how and I've started writing down some ideas to plan. A sabbatical or a work away, whatever it may be, working abroad, even though I am technically working abroad, but yeah.
You are actually.
But I can technically, but still. No, so yeah, I think that's my next, that's the next, but also after this real drive on self betterment and development, I actually, I'm just chilling at the moment. I'm really focusing on doing things that I started doing a salsa class.
Oh, nice.
I'm going rock climbing this weekend. So a little, but it's still about me, and it's about carving out that time for you, because nobody else is going to do it. Remember that. Nobody else is going to take 10 minutes out of their day to think about you.
No, they absolutely are not. Though I think maybe people will after watching this today. They might spend 10 minutes thinking about us because we've had such a good conversation.
I know.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I might just ask you the question, because I asked this last week and I got a really wonderful answer. Any parting words?
God, I should have prepared for this. I should have known. I even listened to the one last week. Parting words. I need parting words. Well, the quote I always use about, cultural change and finding your piece to the puzzle about changing. But ultimately, you know what? Be brave. Be brave. Take those risks. If I had known everything I knew now when I was in my 20s, I would have done things differently, but then I wouldn't be here, right? Be brave.
I love that.
The only person that you're letting down is possibly yourself. Take those, say yes, take those opportunities, and just put yourself out there. And I do wish I would have done that. I would have valued myself a bit more to do that. But hey ho, we live and we learn. It's not a race at the end of the day as well.
It's never too late. It's not a race, and it's never too late.
Yes, you're right. It's good to say that, because actually just to reiterate to people, I took my sabbatical when I was in my mid-30s. So it's not that you have to do it when you're young or you can never travel again. And I'm planning another sabbatical that I'll take in my 40s. So it's never too late. And just be brave. Be brave.
I love the thing about being brave. So yesterday I ran a masterclass yesterday called Revolutionary, and it was all about how do you kind of go from being good at what you do to being like that next level innovator, pioneer, revolutionary leader. And it was one of these masterclasses, which I knew it was going to be good, but when I got in there, it was like 500 times better, and I blew myself away, just tooting my own trumpet. It was incredible. But one of the biggest, so I went through like four things that you need to do that. And one of those was risk taking. And I went around this group of incredible women who showed up for themselves yesterday and asked them all about risk taking. And nearly every one of them, we got all the way from, I have a horrific physical reaction to taking risks. I don't want to, I feel, and the reasons they weren't taking risks and all of that. And I was like, this is absolutely essential. You don't get to be in that place. And I did a bit of hard, you know me. It was a bit of hard truth.
Right, so you need that hard truth.
All of the fucking wonderful shit that you want. If you're not willing to take a little risk, love, like it's not going to happen for you. So anyway, I went away and I said my piece, and I got these messages afterwards saying, I've just taken this I've left the masterclass and I've taken this massive risk. And I'm not going to divulge what they were, but and like these women just flooding in of things that they were doing. And I was like, that's it. You can sit on as many training courses, masterclasses, coaching sessions as you fucking like and take it in. But if you don't go and do, nothing is going to change for you. And this flood that I got in yesterday of women going, I've done it. I've gone and done it. I've taken the risk. I'm doing it.
That, back to that point about taking the risk when you leave your job for a sabbatical. It is a calculated risk, right? If I knew I might not have a job, but what was the alternative? To still sit around and do something that and just kind of, that's not that for me. Yes, it is a risk, but you have to, live what's in here, listen to yourself, right? Take those risks because you know at the end of it, yes, there's no going back, but there's no going back, which is amazing. You haven't come this far to just come this far, or whatever that quote is. That's beautiful. I love that.
There's the thing about like making a decision as well. It's much more damaging to sit in indecision than to make a wrong decision. Yeah. Like there is so few decisions where the door is shut afterwards and there is nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to reverse it. It's completely irreversible. And that's something we spoke about yesterday as well. I was like, how many times, like everyone's saying, I'm scared that if I do it, I'm going to look stupid. Somebody's going to shout at me. This is going to happen. I'm going to do something beyond repair. And I was like, as an adult, how many times has that happened to you? And we have this from being a child, right? Yeah. We're scared that we're going to get told off, or we're going to be shouted at, or we're going to be made to look stupid, because those things happen to us as a child. And it's like, right, well, we're an adult now. How many times in the adult world does this happen? And if it does happen, if you do the thing, if you put yourself out there, because we were talking about even small risks, speaking up in a meeting and saying something that might be unpopular. If you do that and you get shouted at and it's a horrific experience, all you've done is expose the place that you're in and know that you need to go to a different place. Like,
exactly. And you're absolutely right. And I think it's this idea that, nobody wants to, of course it's going to make, if presenting is something that you don't want to do, of course it's going to make you feel horrible, but try it. Try small. You don't have to go to a big, you don't have to go on LinkedIn and talk and air everything. Start with a small group of people. Start small, do it, but take those risks. Somebody said the other day, make a new mistake every day. because if it's obviously it's got to be new, because if it's the same mistake, then you're not learning. But making it, so it was, along with this development course I did, I had made a mindful decision to seek uncomfortable situations, to seek out, and I think I told you this, Tara, to seek out opportunities that would put me out of my comfort zone. And I've grown, I think this, I've got all these lovely leadership quotes, but that leadership is like a pair of shoes or something. You need to buy it, or you've got your next job has to be one size too big or two sizes too big, because you grow into it. And that really should be the way we look at our career growth, and whatever it is, sideways, upwards, whatever it may be. You should be able to grow into it. You shouldn't be a made product by the time if you're applying for a job and you're already that made product for, then maybe see what else can stretch you.
Yeah, I love that. That's an awesome. I think that's probably going to be a quote that goes. There's
yeah.
so many.
I'll dig it out. I'll dig out the actual quote, but it was from one of the most impressive speakers, and she was a permanent secretary for business department for business energy, which has changed. I don't know what they're called anymore, but she was the permanent secretary, and she was like the youngest permanent secretary they've ever had. And she came out and said, for people that don't think that compassion and kindness is leadership skills, I don't have any time for them. Don't have any time. Shut them down right away. If you don't think that you can be a leader that's compassionate and kind, nada.
Yeah. I spoke about this yesterday about energetics as well, and introduced like the impact of masculine and feminine energetics, of which still 90% of the people I speak to have no idea about. And it is something that has expanded me so much. And that's exactly it. We think that traditionally the masculine energetics are the things that are the leadership traits, the directness.
We've been told that.
Yeah, exactly. But there is absolute, and to be very clear, masculine and feminine energetics are not gendered. Everybody has these energies. I am traditionally much more masculine in terms of my energetics than I am feminine. And so for me, trying to implement those things, and bring in that feminine energy of compassion, of creativity, of receptivity, of openness, of listening, of relationship building, of all of those things, is what has made me a way better leader and a way more diverse leader. The balance of the two, that we need both energies, but we need to not lean too far in one or the other. And we also need to assess the situations we're in. If we need something that's logic and driven, we need to be tapping into our masculine energies. If we need something that is relationship and creativity driven, we need to be tapping into our feminine energy. And that, like I say, it is non-gendered. We all have these energies irrespective of our gender, but it's just learning how to balance them.
And we've been told to turn off those specific energies, because those make you weak. And that's another part of what I'm trying to focus on with my connections I make with people, is getting through this point that no, you're not weak for showing emotions. We are humans. We have all the range of emotions. That's what makes you human. That's what makes you beautiful. Yeah. And showing that all is part of our human spirit. So tap into all of that. And as a leader, that's who I want leading me. People that can bridge all that gaps.
Love it. Okay, we have of course run over
I
time.
know we've gone way over. Sorry if people are still here.
Thank you so much for coming on. It has been such a wonderful conversation.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.